What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. 5 days, working on 5 days off of Kratom right now. I did not sleep well last night. I'm just going to be completely transparent about that. Which I think some of that has to do with the fact that throughout this process of tapering and everything, I have been taking, a few things to kind of help with that process. Kava, I've been taking melatonins, taking some magnesium at night and stuff like that. And it's one of those things, people, or being a person who possesses addictive behaviors, I try to be careful about not trading one addiction for another, so I don't want to, as a monkey would not let go of one branch before grabbing onto another one. I talk about that on here. I don't want to trade Kratom for then using Kava and melatonin to sleep every night. So I kind of, the last few days, I've really been wanting to see where I'm actually at, whether I'm completely past any withdrawals in terms of insomnia and things of that nature. And so yesterday, I not only, it was my second day in a row not taking Kava, but I also did not take any melatonin last night. And what happened was, I laid down, ate some dinner, laid down, and I did fall asleep. I did pass out for a couple of hours, maybe about 2.5 hours. But this has been just a regular trend for me, is that I'll go to sleep for a couple of hours, but then sometime between 12:30, 1 o'clock, somewhere around in there, I'll wake up or get woken up. Sometimes I'm getting woken up because for all of you who've been watching me for a while, I have a baby at home, an almost 3-month-old baby. So sometimes I'm just getting woken up, right? But then other times, like by example, last night, when I woke up, the baby was sleeping. So it wasn't the baby that woke me up. But I'm having trouble putting together a long, extended period of sleep. You know what I mean? It's one of those where I was up, and then once I woke up, then I'm like wide-eyed, and I just nothing tired within me whatsoever. I don't know why that is. This is something that I think is pretty common when it comes to the insomnia that you might experience when going through some sort of withdrawal, especially for something similar to an opiate, right? And I do recall experiencing that before, but I will say this is my first time doing an actual long taper and quitting. Anytime that I quit pills in my past, it was cold turkey. It was one of those where I just had to cut myself off, because if I kept myself in possession of the pills, then it just made it too freaking hard to quit. I just had to put myself in a situation where, dude, you're cut off, and that's actually kind of what I did, or ended up doing, both times. One time I wrote a doctor a letter. The doctor that was prescribing me the Percocet actually wrote them a letter and said, hey, don't give me any more of these shits, because I'm abusing the hell out of them, basically. I didn't say it exactly like that. It sounded very much more professional, because I'm a professional sort of guy, But the message was the same. Don't give me any more of these, because I'm abusing the shit out of these, right? One time I did that. The second time, I actually picked myself up and went to an outpatient rehab facility, and saw an addiction specialist there. They put me on a little bit of Suboxone for a little bit. I ended up coming off of that, and I was going to meetings there for a little while, stuff like that. So both times that I quit pills, I had to just do a hard stop and cut myself off, because I had tried to quit and lessen my use so many times to no avail. And it was one of those where I knew that's just, with the extremist sort of personality that I have, my extremist personality and my competitive nature has served me well in a lot of ways in my life. It's also been one of my biggest downfalls, if I'm being completely honest. That all or nothing, sort of mentality and approach to life that I have is ever persistent. I don't know where that comes from. That may just be a part of could just be an expression of the whole addictive behavior, or as some people like to call it, a personality, which most professionals argue. A lot of professionals argue against the whole, I have an addictive personality. You hear people say that all the time. I have an addictive personality. Well, a lot of professionals will argue against that. They're like, no, that's not a personality thing, right? Because the person's personality is completely different. Elvis Presley was highly addicted to stimulants, pain pills, multiple other things that he was taking on a regular basis, but his personality wasn't anything like that. It was an addictive disease and disorder that he had that expressed itself by way of, over consuming medications, right? So anyway, I'm just splitting hairs there. That's neither here nor there, and I'm just I love doing that, going off on tangents. But anyway, yeah, so I didn't sleep real well, and then once I did get woken up, I kind of just laid there just looking at the ceiling for a little bit. Finally, I turned the TV on eventually, and this whole time, what I'm trying to do is I took a melatonin and laid it beside my bed, on my table beside my bed, right? I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna set this here. I'm not gonna take it because I want to get a feel for where I'm at, and I want to be able to get to the point where obviously I'm sleeping without taking any of that stuff. I don't want any help, right? I want to just be able to naturally, by natural body processes, just be able to drift off to sleep, right? And the only way to know if you're there yet is to not take something that's going to help you. So that's the idea that I had. And so I set the melatonin on my table and was like, okay, well, I'm only going to take this if I need it. So I did go ahead and pass out for a couple of hours. And I've noticed that, which I shouldn't do this. I've been trying to eat dinner earlier because I'm a big time health nut. Exercise, eating healthy, all that stuff. I exercised really heavily yesterday, so I thought maybe that would help me. But then again, I wonder, because sometimes I notice I don't exercise in the morning, I exercise in the afternoon. I know it would probably be better if I did that in the morning, because I feel like sometimes that actually, because it gives you kind of an energy boost, especially really intensive exercise, sometimes I wonder if that actually keeps me awake a little bit, because I lay down and I'm just like, I'm just tweaking from like all the endorphins going around in my brain from the intense exercise. But I can't really say that, because I've noticed once I eat, I'll eat I'm one of those people that snacks throughout the day, right? But I snack on only healthy things, cheese, nuts, pecans, walnuts, some cherries, ate some pineapple today. I'll eat a banana later on this afternoon, something like maybe some Cheez-Its or something like, so when I eat, I'm eating very healthy, but I'm one of those people that I don't sit down during the day and eat like a full-fledged meal. Everybody I work with, when lunchtime comes around, just a few minutes ago when we all left for lunch, they're all getting in their cars and driving to some local restaurant and going to sit down and eat somewhere, or, running through a fast food drive-through and grabbing themselves some food. That's what most people do. I don't do that. I actually kind of snack just throughout the day. It might be 9:30 in the morning when I take my first bite of something, but it's really healthy, whatever I am eating, right? And then I might be eating something else, a small amount of a little bag of like cherries or something, or pineapple, 2 hours after that. So I'm one of those people that's just kind of constantly snacking throughout the day, which is why I come here and do these videos on lunch, because I don't go to a restaurant, and so I come to this nearby park where there's a creek and it's some beautiful views and stuff like that, and I'm 30 minutes from home, so it's a 30-minute commute back to my house. So I get an hour lunch. The company requires that you take the hour lunch. I would love to just not take a lunch, because I just snack throughout the day anyway, right? I would love to just not take a lunch and just get off an hour earlier in the evening. Company won't allow that, because then that gives everyone the permission to do the same thing. I actually asked that question when I was on my interview for this company a little over a year ago, and they were, very transparently were like, that's not really an option, sort of thing. And I was like, okay, well, I'll take a lunch then. Even though I don't really have much of a need for lunch, because like I said, I don't eat a lunch. I eat very healthy items throughout the day, but I'm just, every couple of hours or so, I'm snacking on something, right? And so I don't have time to drive back home, so I have to go somewhere, but I'm not sitting down and eating a meal. So it just makes sense to come here and, spend that 30 minutes with you guys. That's what I meant. It took me 5 minutes to tell you that that's why I come here and I do these videos. I look like Donald Trump when I did that. That's why. That's why I did that. Oh, man. Oh, buddy, this one's really going off the rails. Damn. Anyway, if you like what you hear, subscribe to the channel. And, you don't have to pay for anything. It's a free service. And I'm just a guy on my lunch break. I had one of my one of my subscribers suggest that I call my channel Just a Guy on My Lunch Break. It was Marin. Thank you, Marin. To believe it or not, I actually considered that. In fact, drop a comment. Let me know down below. I kind of thought that was a clever idea. I started thinking about it. I was like, just a guy on my lunch break. Or just a guy on his lunch break. One of those two. I wasn't sure which. And I actually went in and changed the name, just to see what it would look like when you pulled up my page, my YouTube page on YouTube, just to see how it flowed, how those words flowed at the top. And I was like, not too bad, but then I was like, well, I don't want people to be like, well, who's this guy? I thought that's right, I said it, but leave a comment down below. Let me know if you think I should go there, if I should keep it the way it is. I thought it was a clever idea, because I've referred to myself several times as, I'm no professional therapist. I'm just a guy on my lunch break, and I've said that several times. And Marin seemed to think that maybe I should change the name of the channel to that it was kind of clever. I thought it was kind of clever. But let me know what you guys think about that. But everything else is going pretty well. And I want to remind everyone out there, because, I've gotten a few messages where people like, well, that's great. You seem to be doing great. I just had a horrible experience when I went to come off. I don't know how you seem like you're not sick at all. I don't know how I want people, if it's new people that are coming onto my channel and you are only seeing me by example for the first time or the second time, and you haven't had the chance to watch back all of my other videos, so you don't really know my story, I want to be clear to anybody who's just happening up on my channel. So I'm 5 days off of Kratom. That is true. It's Thursday right now. I haven't taken Kratom since last Saturday evening. But I did not do a cold turkey. And I also was not taking, a lot of these people out here are taking 30, 40, 50 grams. And that's one of the problems with something like Kratom that increases your tolerance. You'll get to a point where 5 grams doesn't do it for you anymore. And you will. You will get there eventually if you're doing it every day, multiple times per day. And then so you work your way up to 10 grams just so you can get the feeling. You can continue to get the feeling. And then from there, well, 3, 4, 5 months pass, whatever, your tolerance increases again. You know, it's kind of like inflation. You know, over time, the price is increasing, the price is increasing, your tolerance works the same way. So after 3, 4, 5, 6 months of steady use, then you're up to 15 grams, then you're up to 20 grams. So when people continue using on an ongoing long-term basis and they never stop, their tolerances get way up here, way up here, way up here. Not everybody, but a lot of times that's what's happening with people. And so I just want to be clear to everyone that I did a slow taper, you know, and I never, with the powder, I had my stint with the MIT 45s back in the day, that is true. But as far as the powder and the capsules, I always really used the capsules, and I never really went over, you know, I don't know, somewhere between like 10, 13 grams, something like that per day, was really kind of my max. So I never really went much over that. Plus, I did a taper that lasted me about 3 weeks. You know, go back and watch my videos. I went down to 10 grams. Then from there, I dropped down to 8 grams. From there, I dropped down to 6 grams. Then I started, you know, making it a little more smaller and incremental, 5.5 grams. And then it went down to 4.5 grams. You know, I followed kind of this slow, steady taper method. And so I want to be clear for all of you who have messaged me and been like, wow, how are you doing so well? Like, I'm taking 40 grams a day, 50 grams a day, but when I stop, it's just the withdrawals are so horrific that I just can't do it. You know, if that's you, you're gonna have to do some sort of taper. If not, you're gonna have to pay the piper. And I talked about this yesterday. You know, you take this Kratom on an ongoing, regular basis over and over and over, you're getting all these dopamine surges over and over and over on a daily basis, and your body's response to that is, oh shit, we have an excess of dopamine. Well, what do? Okay, we'll shut down the factory, turn the lights off, everybody goes home, no more dopamine production for today. No more. And that's your body's response to that. So then when people go to stop, they're like, oh shit, I feel like I just got stepped on by a football team with cleats. You know, I mean, it just is a really, really, really bad feeling. The depression, the low mood, the anhedonia. Well, that is a direct result of you having to now pay the piper, because you've been getting all this fake dopamine surge for however long you've been doing it on a daily basis, and your body responded by cutting off almost completely its own natural dopamine dopamine manufacturing processes, right? So then when you just stop, it's, you know, that's the experience that you have. So I just want to be clear the way I went about it, you know, and I went a little bit more aggressive than a lot of medical advice would tell you to go. You know, I was doing maybe a gram at a time or 2 grams at a time, and sometimes I wasn't waiting but a day or two in between while I was dropping those. And I was doing other things to help offset the withdrawals. I was exercising really hard. I already eat really healthy, drink a ton of water to kind of get the toxins out of your body. You know, I was taking the melatonin, the kava, you know, some vitamin C supplements, a little bit of magnesium. You know, I was doing all these things to kind of help with it. So I just want people to be clear that I plan this shit out, because that's how I roll. When I go in on something, I go in with my guns loaded. I go in with my guns blazing. I don't just willy-nilly like, well, I think I want to quit today. Well, I'll take that back. Because back in my 20s, when I did my first, you know, cold turkey withdrawal from like Vicodin and stuff like that, I did do a willy-nilly cold turkey. And it sucked. And when I say it sucked, I mean it sucked big donkey ones. I'm not going to say the word because I don't want to get shadow banned on YouTube. But it sucked in a really, really, really big way. I'm not even lying. And maybe that now is why I don't go there now. You know, I've figured out, I've done some research, figured out a smarter way to go about it. And so just to understand that there's a way I did it. And the reason where it may not seem like it's quite as bad for me is because, you know, I just stuck with it and I remained focused. I decided I did not want that freaking ball and chain hanging off of my ankle anymore. Right? And that's the method that I used to get off of it. But nonetheless, I got another great comment yesterday, and I want to read this gentleman's comment because I like getting different perspectives on here, you know, because you have, you know, in my opinion, there's three types of people that use Kratom. All right, there's the type of person that they're good with it, they're good with where they are, they have no desire to quit, they say there's really no negative side effects, it gives them benefits, there's no real negative aspects of their use, so they're good with it, right? There's that person. Then there's the people who claim to be good with it, but really deep down in places that they don't talk about, they're really not good with it, and they're just kind of in denial so that they can continue using, right? I'm not saying I'm not saying any of you are one or the other. I'm just saying these are factually the type of Kratom users that you run across. And then there's a third kind. There's a third kind, which these people absolutely are not good with their use. They've expressed that they're not good with their use, and they don't justify their use, but they can't quit, or they've been unable to quit because of the withdrawals, right? Or just because it's hard. It's hard. And try telling someone out there who has never been addicted to opiates, or to something similar to an opiate. Try telling that person how hard it is to quit taking something like Kratom, and they're just like, you know, they look at you with this blank stare like, well, you know, just stop, you know, just stop taking it. What's the big deal? You know, to them, they don't understand it. They'll say things to you like, my wife, which she's a very compassionate person, she's been very understanding about this. And I will say my wife has a younger brother that suffered from a heroin addiction. A lot of his not late teens, I guess he was probably in his 20s, but he was really bad there for a while. Really bad. I'm not going to go too deep into it because I haven't asked for his permission. You know, and obviously I'm not going to say his name either, but so I think for that she kind of has a better understanding because she knows what type of person he is. She knows the type of heart that her brother has and the type of person that he is at his core and in his heart, and knows that all the things that he did during his active heroin addiction was not him. You know, it was his brain under the influence of a very, very, very powerful opiate, right? And same thing with all you guys. Same thing with me, you know. I'm not a thief, but in my active Vicodin and Percocet addiction, I made an exception. I made an exception because that's how hooked I was, you know, and that's how horrible it was when I didn't have any more. So those are the three types of people, and this is at bdiggs 77305, and he's a new subscriber. Thank you so much, bro. I appreciate you joining me on the channel, and his comment kind of gave it a little different perspective that I wanted to touch on. He says here, I like your channel, man, but I wouldn't agree that Kratom is an epidemic. I don't think you meant to put it that way, though. It's definitely addictive, but it's a better thing for many people than messing with pills or hardcore drugs. I do agree that people need to understand it can be addictive. but it's all how it's used. Those MIT 45 extract shots are much stronger than typical powder. I think extracts aren't a good thing. I've taken daily for about 8 years, 10 grams per day. It's helped me get through a lot of hard times in my life. Am I addicted? For sure, but I'm also addicted to caffeine, sugar. I feel it's helped my quality of life. I've been through some pretty hardcore drug withdrawals though, so my outlook may be different. I know you have your own history with abusing pills. Happy that you tapered off, man, and I like the content. I do want to taper and take a break for a week or two. I appreciate your input. Well wishes from Texas. All right. Got me a Texan up in here. Thank you so much, bro. I really appreciate the comment. And I just wanted to point out a couple of things, you know, that you mentioned. And it's funny because you sound very similar to how I sounded probably a couple of months ago. So he mentions here that he's been using for about 8 years, about 10 grams per day. So I do want to say right out of the gate that is a much lesser amount than what a lot of people are taking. Okay. And one of the biggest concerns when I said that it was an epidemic, he disagreed that was probably not the right terminology. And I will say that it may be, we may be looking at semantics here. And the reason I say that is because it probably hasn't been legal and available for long enough in the United States yet for it to become a full-on epidemic, but it's well on its way. It's well on its way. And I'm telling you for 100% sure it is well on its way, just like the opioid crisis. You know, back in the 80s and 90s, before people really knew how addictive these Vicodins and Percocets and all this stuff were, and doctors were just handing them out like candy with no regard, and then the next thing you know, we've got an opioid crisis, and you got all these, you know, pill heads and people who are heavily addicted running around, you know, doing anything to find going into rehab because of something their doctor gave them, right? You trust a doctor. They go to school for 13 years to help you take care of your health, and then they give you something that just ends up flipping your life on its freaking head, all right? So this became a big problem, and it absolutely was an epidemic, and to the point where they called it a crisis. Well, now you have something like Kratom, which, listen, you know, we're comparing apples to oranges, and I'll never get on here and say that Kratom is bad or that it's as bad as pills, and I have been on pills. I've been heavily addicted to pills, and there are some things about Kratom that aren't as bad, but at 10 grams per day, bro, you know, you're not going to experience a lot of the negative effects that a lot of these people are experiencing. And it goes back to you know, something I've been talking about a lot recently as well, is how unregulated Kratom is. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. You know, you, my man, you're at 10 grams per day. It seems like you've done a pretty good job of keeping the tolerance low. But many people amass a much larger amount daily with this. Bro, you can go and buy as much Kratom as you want in one shot. As long as you got the cash, you can buy as much Kratom as you want. You know, you couldn't do that with pills. A doctor's only going to give you so much, and people only had so much money to go and buy expensive pills off of the street, and people only had so much money to go doctor hopping and to pay co-pays and pay these, you know, different pharmacy bills and stuff. So that's where I see where a lot of the danger is. It's super unregulated, you know, and any adult who's over 18 years of age, possibly even younger, to be honest, because I know a lot of times those people behind the counter at these head shops in my state, they ain't checking people's ID. They're not checking people's ID. I mean, they might some, but I'm sure there's some people who slip through the cracks. But that's one of the big problems with Kratom. The second one is, he says here about the you know, people being on harder drugs like the heroin, the pills, stuff like that. Okay, so how do I kind of tiptoe around this? I don't disagree in the sense that I would rather see somebody taking kratom than shooting heroin in their veins or shooting up fentanyl and dying, killing over in the, on the corner of 5th and Main from an overdose. I would definitely rather see somebody taking kratom than that. But does that really excuse its use if people are simply using it to get high off of it? Now listen, there's two sides to every coin. There's two sides to every coin. Obviously, there are people out there that have a legitimate use for kratom. They experience chronic pain, physical pain on a regular basis. They swear by the fact that it helps them with those things, and helps their quality of life in many ways. And that may very well be true, and I know that is true. So there's a flip side to it. But if you're going to be honest with yourself, how many people out there are using it for chronic pain versus how many people are using it because it freaking feels good, man? Yeah, dude, it feels good, man. It feels rocking. I feel like I can conquer the freaking world when I'm on this, man. It's a fair statement by me. Most users are, this guy feels awesome, dude. I feel great. I feel like I can leap buildings at a single bound, man. I'm like Superman guy. I feel great. I mean, it's a fair statement by me. And so what I'm saying is, you got a lot of people who are addicts, buzz searching, out there taking the kratom, right? It's mostly those people. It's not mostly people who have a legitimate need for it. It's just not. It's just not. And if we get real about it, then you got to admit that that's the truth. I'm not saying there's not people that actually have a legitimate need for it, and there may even be people out there who literally have depression, have anxiety, whatever, and really need it. But if you point to those people, if you point me in the direction of those people, I'm also going to say, okay, so you're telling me as a sober person, this person has lived their whole sober life dealing with depression, anxiety, and so they tried the kratom, and now the kratom has helped them to overcome that. Because 90% of those people who claim to have trouble with depression and anxiety are drug users, regular, consistent drug users. I was one of those people, and it took me till I was 47 years old to realize that, damn, all this stress and anxiety that I'm claiming that I have is freaking self-inflicted. I've been using something all my adult life, and especially when it's something like opiates, you come off of it, you feel like shit, and it spawns depression and anxiety. The interdose withdrawals, this thing, the roller coaster, right? If you're taking it, you're good. If you lessen it, or you're not taking it, or you take less, you're not good. On comes the depression. On comes the anxiety. So you end up getting in this long marathon race where you've got this ball and chain dragging behind you. And what's that ball and chain called? You got it. It's called kratom. So I'm not here to tell anybody they're right or they're wrong. I'm not campaigning against kratom. I don't want it to be outlawed. I don't, because I can only take people at their word that they're good with where they are, and that there are people out there that have a legitimate use for it and genuinely receive benefits from it. So I would never say that, because I would not want to take that from people, because I want people to live the most fulfilled life that they possibly can. And by golly, if kratom helps with that, Who am I to sit up here on some high throne and say, well, you're, that's a slippery slope. Your Kratom use is a slippery slope. I would never do that. I'm not that guy. So I appreciate your comment. I agree with you. But the unregulation of Kratom, I just want people out there to be honest with themselves. If it really does benefit you, excellent. But if you're like me, you might preach one day about it benefiting you, but then 2 days later, when you try to miss a dose of Kratom, you're like, damn, I really just don't want to take this shit anymore.